Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the hands-on presentation of PowerPoint. So we have a small group, which is actually going to work really well, I think, with this presentation, hopefully, or this workshop. Okay. So as was mentioned, my name is Christina Schwobel. I am one of the librarians here at the Thomas Cooper Library. I'm also fairly easy to contact. I'm the only Christina in the library. I think the only Schwobel in the state. So if at any point you do have questions regarding random things, feel free to contact me directly. I posted my email in the chat. So I'm going to split you guys into two groups. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with looking at some of your presentations that you already have created. All right. Hope I didn't cut anyone off in any of the groups. Thank you to all of those that presented your presentations. We're seeing some good stuff. All right, so what kind of feedback did you guys have, or what kind of things were you noticing when you were looking at presentations, or just thinking about how to evaluate the presentations?
Hi, this is Kay. I think it makes a big difference whether or not you're talking synchronous or asynchronous, the use of the PowerPoint.
Yes. Definitely makes a difference with synchronous or asynchronous as to whether they're going to be teaching themselves with it or whether it's something that you are going to be participating with them for it. Yeah. Looking the balance between the text and the graphics. Wonderful. Anything else that people were noticing when they were kind of just looking at some of the basic, either the evaluation things that I provided or also looking at the different slides that were being shown or just thinking about your own presentations that you normally have? Yeah, it's an in-person synchronous class session. Yeah, that definitely does make a difference. The audience makes a huge difference for what kind of things like that. So for a lot of when you're kind of thinking about your presentations or even evaluating presentations that you're seeing, you sometimes just want to start thinking about you know, the main two areas, which are those content and the design. So of course the content's most important because you really want to make sure that you do have good content that you're sharing. And then you want to think about how effective is the content that you're sharing. Is it something that you're breaking up into kind of readable bites? Are you overloading in the information too much? How's the information flowing? So you really want to think about what's carrying over. Are you repeating necessary information that you really want them to take away? And then, of course, the basic, are there spelling and grammar errors? Things like that. So those are things you really want to start evaluating when you are doing your presentations, just to make sure you kind of are matching up the information with the audience, and you're also matching up with how much needs to be provided on slides versus if it's something where everyone's going to be there, your slides don't have to have maybe as much information as if you want them to almost be able to just do the slides by themselves without you. So they definitely, if you are doing an asynchronous versus synchronous, that's something to think of with how much information to put on the slides. Or even if you're going to be recording that information and saving it into a video or something else like that. So content is the most important. And so I always say it's more important that you do get that content really correct and kind of nail that than you worry about the design. So we had a great opportunity in one of the groups to see like a partially done one. And she did it properly where she was focusing first on the content and then after that is going to be adding in the design elements and kind of the images and things like that. So it is most important to kind of look at that content. And then once you've done that, then you can start kind of thinking about how your design is really set up. So a few things that I do like to mention is with the template that you're using. So you really want to make sure that it's appropriate for the presentation. One thing that I do recommend thinking of is, are most people going to be, like right now, watching this on their computer screens, or is it going to be presented with an overhead projector? The reason I mention that is because that can really make a difference between maybe what color choices you're going to choose. Because a lot of times, computer screens, you may not want to choose some of those really dark colors. Or you want to make sure that you have that nice balance so it's easily readable if it is going to be presented on a projector screen or versus a tablet or someone's phone maybe. So maybe just making sure that the template's appropriate and it's all readable. Yes, Nate?
So, Christina, I just grabbed something out of my class. So what do you think about the, especially when you have a bit of content or your slide is content heavy, that you use animation to break it up?
I think you can definitely use animation. I do always recommend don't just use animation for the sake of using animation. The nice thing with PowerPoint is there's a lot of fun toys you can play with, but you want to think about how is that animation adding to the presentation? How is it accompanying what you're saying? So is that something that's building on the information? Is it going to illustrate something in a different way? Or sometimes you just might use animation to keep students awake, because honestly, after a while, they do tend to kind of zoom out a little bit and just get distracted. But you want to make sure that when you are using things like animation, you're using them purposefully and making sure that it's relevant. So just like with are the images relevant and detracting or adding to the message, animations and transitions should be the same. Yeah, design elements, a lot of times you want to think of them as almost like bonus or enhancements. So they should kind of be enhancing the information that you're sharing in some way. That's why looking at like graphs or data visualizations, you want to make sure they're easy to read and understand, because they shouldn't be enhancing what you're trying to say. Graphs, images, they're all really kind of showcasing some additional information that should, again, add to your presentation and add to what you're sharing. So whether it's, using something that's more emotional to kind of connect that data in some meaningful way to the students better, or whether it's just like a clear way of visualizations for that information, you're just wanting to make sure that you're really showcasing that and making sure that they're adding to and not distracting from your images. I know I've done some presentations before, or I've been to some presentations where you sit through them and they have amazing graphics in there, and at the end, all I could remember was the really cute cat pictures, and I didn't remember anything about the actual content of the percentages or anything else like that. So again, make sure you have that kind of balance that it adds to your message. And then, of course, as a librarian, I got to always remind people, cite your images or graphs if you are getting them from somewhere else. Going back to like the template being appropriate, you also want to think of color scheme, and is that appropriate? And then also kind of looking at your fonts. So are they easy to read? Is your text getting lost in the background? Things like that. And then I always like to look at my slides and then afterwards think, is there something that could really be removed from this slide to make it a better presentation? Because I tend to add a lot of stuff into my presentations, which is terrible. And then I talk really fast because I want to include everything. And then people get really frustrated because I added too much and I need to just remove a few things every now and then. So those are some things you can think of a little bit with that evaluation. And now, since we've kind of gone a little bit through the evaluation process, let's also go ahead then and look a little bit at some different exercises that you can also do of things that might be helpful for when you're working with presentations. So the first one is just looking at accessibility. So hopefully everyone does want to make sure that their slides are really accessible. And the nice thing is that PowerPoint has some really great built-in accessibility functions. So I will share an example. Here's just a really basic presentation I've created. And if you click on the little bottom left, there's going to be an accessibility investigate option that will be right there. So you should see this also on your own PowerPoint slides. And this is going to go ahead and search for where there are possible areas that you can update, where either you need to add some additional information to make it more accessible or possibly remove things. So it has things like missing alternative text, where I didn't go ahead and add in alternative text for any of my images. It has things like reading order, which is really important when you're looking and evaluating the for some of the screen readers, just to make sure that it's going to be in the proper order, so it won't be out of order for when they're trying to go through that with the computer, or things like that. Accessibility is down in the bottom left. There's a little option that says Accessibility Investigate. The other thing is you can also go underneath Review and click on where it says Check Accessibility. So there are two options to get to it. Again, bottom left, it should normally pop up with that investigate option, or you can check accessibility under review and then check accessibility options. So it's a nice thing to do, especially right after you just done like the spelling check and things like that. Then you can just go straight to check the accessibility and just make sure that, again, this is a little bit more accessible if you are going to be sharing these slides. And the nice thing too is it'll kind of tell you why it's recommending you to fix things. So it won't just say, just do it. It'll kind of walk you through why the steps are really important. So it's kind of a really nice feature that is available then within PowerPoint. And that way you can just do that automatically. All right, so that's something that I highly recommend, just leaving it running as you are going through your presentation and creating that. And then that will just have those gentle reminders of just, hey, you might want to fix this. It could be good to do that. So that's something to just keep in mind or keep going as you're creating your presentation. All right. Okay, so we have the next exercise, which hopefully everyone will be able to do. And we're just going to work on inserting and then altering an image. So the nice thing is you can always insert images, and hopefully everyone has at some point added an image to their presentation. But a lot of people haven't realized or don't know some of the options for altering those images. So go ahead and select the insert option, and then you're going to choose either pictures or screenshot. And then insert the image into a slide. And then once you've done that, left click on the image. That will then add in the option to do to work with the picture formatting. So I have an image here, so I'm going to left click on that, and you can now see that picture format is available, and that will then allow you to work with that image, and you can do all kinds of different things. So I added a few different options for things you can try exploring, such as changing the color, looking at the alignment tools, or things like that. Wonderful. Yes, Nate?
Yeah, Christine, just in case it's helpful to anyone, so I did the accessibility check, but what it said was that my version of PowerPoint needed to be updated, and so it allowed me to click on that option to update that file. So someone could do that also if your PowerPoint is a little outdated, because they keep updating every so often. That even clicking on for accessibility check under, I think it is review, the review menu, then it will then save it to a newer version.
Correct. The other thing is, so all of you should also have access to the online version of PowerPoint, which will automatically be updated. Which is kind of nice, but also kind of annoying, because that way when you open it, all of a sudden there's new changes and you don't know how to work anything, because it's Microsoft and they like changing where they do the normal stuff. So on the 365, they do have the check accessibility available under review. So if you do have an older version, or maybe you're using a Mac or you're not sure where it might be in other ones, you can also use the online 365 version to update that if you'd like. So that is another option that you can do too, just until you have a chance to have the new one updated on your computer. So, I will mention, if you are using some things like some of the transitions and animations and other things, do not always work properly within the 365 online version. So it's kind of a give and take sometimes, where some things work better if you're doing it online and some things work worse. Just like I found it interesting enough, they have a dictate option here where you can go ahead and dictate, and then you can also upload, I think, only from online. So there's all kinds of different features available. And I think I accidentally turned my dictate on. Let's not do that. All right. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to have everyone experiment with adding some kind of an image, and then going and clicking on the image into picture format, and just try exploring with color options, some alignment issues. You can remove the background on images if you'd like to. This is a terrible image to try to do that because it's all white. But just go ahead, and so we're going to all practice just adding in an image, and then just working with some of the color options. And then if anyone would like to share one of theirs after they've done that, there is time to share as well. So you can add an image either from your own computer, or from somewhere else. Like I can just do an image.
I just wanted to add, share my experience, if you let me know.
Oh, please.
That's interesting. Now I'm exploring PowerPoint, and I just learned something new. When you click on Add Image, actually I have options like Insert Table, Insert Chart in one. And let me share my application. So let me show you what I am talking about. Let me. Okay, good. Okay, from here, when you click on stock images, can you see stock images?
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting that there are loads of options here. Modern, like, and then you can add people, you can make personas, characters, stickers, and illustrations. So this is something new I didn't use for a long time. Especially I didn't know that there is a nice bank of artistic pictures here.
Yes. So that is something nice, is that Microsoft does have a lot of built-in stock images available that they provide. And then, of course, you can also use some of the other ones from like Pixabay or Unsplash, which also provide free images. So all you would have to do is just provide, like, say where you got them from, and there you don't have to pay for copyright on them. So I'm posting those two in the chat. There's a lot of other websites that do have kind of more stock images that are freely available, but that is nice. And the other thing that is nice with those stock images is, at least for the ones from Microsoft, you don't need to worry about citing the sources of those. So you can, of course, use those wherever you'd like.
Yeah, is it Pixabay and Unsplash? These are two, Pixabay, Unsplash. These are free databases?
Yes. Yeah, so those
you.
are image databases where you can use the images for free, and you can search different terms and find different resources that are available.
Is it when we use Google search, we may not have them, or they usually appear in Google search as well, Google image?
So I'll show you really quick.
Yeah, I'm checking the website, but I'm wondering if we can have them in Google image also.
So like if I search for any image on cats, and I just want to include a picture of a cat in my presentation, most people think, oh, it's online, it's free. So actually most of these are going to be copyrighted or belong to somebody else. So if you go into tools, you can go under usage rights, and you want to look for something called Creative Commons licenses. And Creative Commons means that they're allowed to be used by anyone without paying for it. And you'll notice this is going to reduce the number of images, and it's going to change which ones are available. So these are ones where they've said, I allow this to be used no matter who wants to use it for the different rights without paying me money or doing other things like that. So you do want to make sure you're either going through and choosing the Creative Commons license option, or you're going through a site like Pixabay or Unsplash, where they do have the freely usable images, just to make sure that you're not going to be breaking copyright by accident. Because there's been a lot of cases where someone accidentally posted something, and then it's like, oh shoot, that's somebody else's image, and they can sue you for that. The nice thing is, unless you're breaking Disney copyright or things like that, they probably won't come after you. But I normally like erring on the safe side, and I like finding ones where if they do use that Creative Commons use, then that's something that they're saying, we want this to be open for everybody. So
I assume companies like Disney, they have copyright kind of embedded on the picture, so somewhere they just put it on the picture, isn't it? So it's kind of.
It's not actually going to be built in. So if we did like, shoot, I'm trying to think of. feeding the beast. So you'll see here, if I'm searching for everything, these are all actually copyrighted images. But I could copy and put them into my presentation, and it just means that I would be stealing someone's copyrighted work because I'm not providing attribution, or in some cases, I'm not paying to use something that someone else has created. Because a lot of times with images especially, artwork will be stolen from somebody and then just posted in a bunch of different places. And so you'll frequently see that, and that's why it's good to make sure you kind of know where your images are coming from to make sure you're not accidentally stealing somebody else's work. Because if you go into that tools and change this to Creative Commons licenses, you're going to see a lot less images are going to be available. And even some of these probably are not actually free, or say they shouldn't be, because I know this one at least probably is licensed. So that's just something to keep in mind as you are working with images, that you do want to be careful because copyright can sometimes get you. And depending on what you're using it for, I wouldn't worry too much, but especially if you are doing online classes more often or recording it, that can still get you in trouble then sometimes.
Oh, wow. So even just having the screenshots is, or
sometimes, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It's also why I like saying, like, if you have a video or if you have something else where you're not sure about the copyright, it's better to just link to it instead of actually showing it yourself, because that gives you more of a, hey, I didn't actually show it or give it to them. You know, I'm telling them where to find it. There's a whole bunch of copyright stuff, and I could talk on hours for that, but yes, it can get really big into that legalese stuff. So it's just better to be safe with going with some of the stock ones like what you saw, or again, some of those free websites that have pictures available.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So actually going back to exploring, so hopefully everyone can add a stock image, adding your own image. Of course, I just had to put a random one of my cat in there. And then once you have that picture format come up on the upper right-hand side, you really can kind of change all kinds of things. So you have alignment options where you can have it aligned with either text boxes or far left, right, center. You can do things like changing the color if you want to. So if you have specific color tones that you want to go with, if you want to make it grayscale, more sepia, you can remove the background. I will mention removing background and cats are kind of a terrible mix because of all the fur, but you can kind of remove background around things. So that way, if you want to, you can kind of customize your pictures a little bit and do that. So if everyone wants to kind of experiment a little bit with some of the images, again, insert either stock images, something from your own device, online picture, or you can do a screenshot. And then just fiddle around with some of the settings, and then you can always share your screen if you'd like to. But I want everyone to have at least a moment or two to go ahead and just try something new that they haven't experimented with within that picture format section. And also in this picture format section is where you can add the alt text or edit your alt text. So in this case, I can put cat floating in sky. I mean, you can put whatever you want, but it's good to go ahead and just make sure that you do have alternative text, especially for the ADA compliance. I will minimize this. If anyone wants to share their screen, go ahead and do so. So I'll stop sharing mine. All right, is there anyone that wanted to share their screen? Okay, go ahead.
You see it now? Well, it's gone. Well, I put up an image of an apple, and it's like when you're pulling the images from the pictures, it's kind of with the resizing, trying to get it to look exactly how you saw it. Is there anything you can do to kind of refine the picture, to kind of format it where if it is not too big and not too small, it's like a workable image?
Okay, so you're saying that now is the image a lot larger than the screen, or is it smaller than the screen that you're?
It's like taking over the whole screen.
All right, here, I'll share my screen really quick and show you. So if you look in the very bottom right-hand corner, you have where you can change the size of the screen, so you can really zoom in or zoom out. So if you accidentally imported a picture that's way too large, I recommend zooming out, and that will then allow you to change the dimensions. It's like, let's say this picture was huge, and I can see the slide there, and the image just overwhelms it a lot. So if you click on that, you can just then click on the corner, and I normally recommend hitting Shift key in order to keep the same dimensions, and then just drag that down to something that's a little bit more manageable. And then that should allow you to then make that fit a little bit better. The other thing that you can do to kind of constrain that better is if you put it into an existing box that is on the screen, then you should be able to then have that fit. So instead of having where you just paste it in wherever you want, if you kind of click inside the box here and add the image from the box, then that will normally constrain it to the box's size. And so that way you won't necessarily have one of those images that go really, really large and take over your entire screen in half. So that's kind of a cheap method that you can do, is you can go ahead and just insert it into here and then change that format accordingly. So I don't know what picture this is. We'll see random. Okay, it's a pair of pants. Awesome. But you'll see that that limited the size. So instead of putting it in as a larger size, it's just limiting it to that height of whatever that image was. So that's something that you can go ahead and use as a constraint if you'd like to, is just having it just within that box and then clicking image. Or if you click within the box and then do insert, then it should keep it just right within that image for inserting it. Okay. So next we're going to do something a little harder, and this is going to be making your own template. So if you click on View and then click on Slide Master, then you can actually create your own master slides, and you can do this either by editing existing slides or kind of just creating your own theme. So again, if you go up in the corner to View, and then you're going to go to the left where it says Master Views and click on Slide View, then this is where you can start editing some of your own master slides. So you can do things like background styles. You can actually add in your own graphics. You can create gradients. So you really have a lot of stuff you can do, both stylistically as well as with like fonts or placements of stuff. So if you are wanting to create almost like your own templates that you want to for specific classes, then you can do this really easily here to make those consistent for your own use. And they do have a few different options. So again, you can change all the fonts and things. And then there's two different locations. The first slide will change all the corresponding slides afterwards. Or if you click on the individual layout slides, you can change each layout slide individually. So that's something that's really easy and nice to play with. So again, you can go under View, Slide Master, and if you want an existing theme, you would just click Themes, and then you can kind of play with ones that's already existing and change it from there. Or again, you can create your own from scratch. So I can change colors, make it violet. So this is something that's really nice to do, especially if you want to make sure you have something consistent. This can also be really handy if you are having students do presentations. That way they already have some built-in templates ready, especially if you want to have them kind of branded for either your class or for the project. And you can, again, what happens when you change the first slide as opposed to the layout slide. You can actually add additional content boxes in. You can create your own layout slides. So you can really kind of explore and play with this a little bit. So we're going to spend a little bit of time and give you guys a chance to kind of just explore a little bit of what you can do with making your own template. Again, either from an existing template or otherwise. Sure, yeah, so the master slides are going to be where you are creating them. And so that way, instead of having kind of a built-in layout that may not work for you, The master slides or creating the templates are going to be so you can kind of make something that is really going to be functional for whatever you might be doing for your presentation. So you can put graphics exactly where you want ahead of time. You can make sure that the text are really well set up. So that way, instead of having to customize something or change the text options, change the bullet points every single time you're working with it, you have that set up already exactly how you want it. So if you work on this master slide title here, this is going to change everything down the line. So like, let's say if all the master text styles here in that first bullet point, I can change this to size 80, and I'm going to put it in Algerian. So now that's going to change every single other one to have that same option. Whereas if I edited the individual layout slides, I can go ahead and change that, and that will just edit that individual type of layout. So that way, anytime I included this title slide, then it would always look like this, unless I edited it. So that way, when you add a new title slide layout, it'll always add a new one exactly like this.
I just have a question. I tried to use master slides several times before, but for some reasons, it seems what I change on master slide doesn't influence the rest of my slides. Isn't it that everything else should follow the format that you already set up for your master slide, or there should be something wrong that I change things on master slides and nothing happened on other slides? Is it?
So it might be the order of operations. So what you want to do is before you create all the content and add all the information, you want to create your master slide and then save that master slide when you do File, Save As, and you're going to actually save them as a PowerPoint template.
Oh, I usually worked on master slides later. So I try to use the master slide and change it later. So it doesn't work that way?
Yes. So in this case, like you'll see how the master slide changed my graphics, but it's not necessarily going to change everything that I have. It'll change some things, but if you've already done some customization, it won't necessarily make changes to some of that customization because it doesn't want to overwrite what you've already done. So in some cases, if I've already added some specific things in myself with changing the fonts or other stuff, it won't necessarily influence that. So that's why it's good to kind of create your template first and save it as a template, and then from there open it and then work within that, because otherwise, again, it's trying not to influence what you've already done, and so there are some things that it won't affect then.
Yeah, my question is mainly about fonts, color of fonts, and yeah, but about the design, it always changes the design of the whole slide, so that works, but not the fonts.
Yes, because so if you already have like a background though, so like if I don't think I necessarily have a lot of backgrounds in this particular one here, but if I had a lot of background ones already set up where I actually put in a physical background for it, like here, let me add a background. So if I already have the background done and I'm going to do like a picture fill there, then if I go through and add in now Slide Master, a new theme, we'll do purple, or no, let's do a theme that has a background. There you go. Then if I do that, it's not going to overwrite that background. It'll add any of the elements to it, but it won't necessarily overwrite what you already did.
Yeah.
So it tries to maintain, if you very specifically put in there certain images or graphics, it won't get rid of those. That's why it's good to kind of do those after you've created that master slide template.
Thank you.
So yeah, I would recommend going through and like creating a new PowerPoint, doing all the changes to master slide, saving it as a template, and then just opening up that template as your master to work off to add new things, if that makes sense.
Oh, so if I do that, I can copy and paste the rest of my slides and it will work. It will follow the master slide format.
Yes. Yeah, so then any future ones you do, you can go ahead and have customized from that. And you can actually then add it. There's a way to add it into your themes option, so it'll actually come up as a theme that you can use then under designs. So you can actually add your own themes. So you can browse for themes, and you can add it and say, so if I saved that theme or that template, then it would be saved under you can add it into their themes. So that's something you could always have available to use.
Oh, okay, good
Does that
to
make
know.
sense?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where sometimes they're trying so hard to make sure they're not overwriting your stuff that when you do want it to be overwritten, it's kind of annoying because it doesn't do it. But yeah, so I normally wouldn't take a finished presentation like this and apply a master slide changes to it. I would again do the master slide first and then create the PowerPoint from that slide.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where are you at the moment? Where how we can find that word cloud you have? You have a cool word cloud of a lady's hair.
Oh, that one. There are some different ones. There are some different creators that you can use to
Mhm.
create word clouds, and then you can apply like shapes and stuff to them. So that's just one that's available. Yeah. So there's add-ins that you can add in, like so they have things like new activities. You can do like a that's its poll now that you can do. But what I used is just a word cloud creator. I was online, and I think it was the just wordart.com. So you can create your own, and you can have it to whatever shape. And they have some built-in shapes that you can do, or you can go ahead and add your own shapes.
Can you
And then
please?
the word cloud will look in the format of like the dog or the penguin or whatever. So, and I mean, there's different ones available. This is just one that I've used previously. Because again, you can add as many words as you want. You can do like different fonts. You can choose what kind of layout you want and style. There's other ones that you might have to pay for some stuff. So again, some of this, if you save them, then you might have to like sign up. And then every now and then they start suddenly charging you for it. So then I might switch to something else. But there's different options available for a lot of that stuff.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right. Well, I think we're getting close. I want to just mention. So I just kind of showed 1, 2, but you can also do add-ins. And again, this is something that you will need to think about as far as what kind of stuff you might want to add in, but you also want to think about cost and or permissions. So if you go underneath Insert, there's a Get Add-in option. And they have things like I use Poll Everywhere, which lets you go ahead and kind of do polls within your presentation, which is kind of nice. And there's free stuff, but there can also be some paid things. But there's a bunch of different add-ins that are available. There's ones like with timers on there. There's ones where you can add in like some different visualizations, some different images. There's all kinds of different stuff available. So you can kind of go through and look at those. If you do choose an add-in, just make sure you are looking at the permissions that are listed down in the bottom left. And then also make sure that you kind of trust where you're getting it from, because there are some ones where I probably would not necessarily go with them just because they look a little sketchy. So just make sure that you are kind of evaluating those and then seeing what ones look like they might be interesting for you if you want to add any of them. But there is a bunch of stuff available that you can use then for add-ins. So that is something that you can also consider as you're creating presentations. Now I know we've covered a bunch of information in a fairly small amount of time, and I know we tried to do some hands-on and didn't always work. Thank you guys so much for your patience with some of the stuff that may not have gone completely according to plan. Are there any questions? Anything you want me to go over again? Anything else that you'd like to comment on before we end the session?
I just have a question. Any points about poll everywhere? So if I want to share the slide with my students, they can access to the result, or it's only me that access to the result? Because I want to upload the PowerPoint to the onto Blackboard. So, any point about that?
So with Poll Everywhere, you have the different options you can do. You can also go ahead and when you're looking at that, you can do the show as saved image options. And then you can show the finished results as well. For that, it's not built in to show the results then if it's not active. So you might have to screenshot that and do that yourself. But that is something you can then share if you'd like to. Or again, you can create it as a saved image after the fact once you've gotten all your results and you've closed it down. So that is something you can do. You can also add forms in. So if you wanted to, if you're not going to be sharing this like through something like Blackboard, but you're going to actually be sharing the slides themselves, you can add a form in, and you can have like quiz questions or other things like that in there. That can be answered, and then again, you can also share the answers from those quizzes or that form, whatever you created, can be shared then as well later. So you do have a few different options with the add-ins for those. And again, you can always contact me if you have specific questions too.